Tip number 2 of the 5 tips to end your marital crisis and pain once and forever is make your world larger. Make your world larger. In the beginning sessions of coaching, I often ask someone, what would you truly like to say to your spouse? What would you say if he or she were standing before you right now? No censoring, no holding back, let it fly. What would you say to your spouse? And often I get the agitated response, well, I've said everything. And I urge them, tell me exactly what you've said. And the person frequently says, well, I've told him or her that I love him, that I want us to work on our marriage and make things better, and that our marriage can be better if only we try. And I also say usually we have too much to lose and we don't want to give up on the marriage. And how does this person's spouse predictably respond? The spouse who hears these statements typically ignores the statement, argues with the statement, gets frustrated or angry, and perhaps walks away. The distancing spouse keeps giving the same response to the same plea to save the marriage over and over and over again. And the pursuing spouse, the one who wants the marriage, who says that love is important, is blinded by the hurt, desperation, and is locked into a powerful personal needs system and keeps reiterating over and over again his or her narrow perception of the situation. For the pursuing spouse, pain is his or her world, a very narrow world, with seemingly few options and really not much hope. Now, as coaching proceeds, what typically happens is that a larger world is reviewed, and this larger world gives more options, more peace, more hope, more strategies, and more personal power. The personal neediness and the fear of the pursuing spouse slides into oblivion. Now, please allow me to show you how the pursuing spouse's world becomes larger and leads towards resolution and healing. I'll give you a few examples here. Instead of saying, I love you and let's work on the marriage and we can have a good life together, so on and so forth, the spouse could say, the pursuing spouse could say, hey, I'm afraid, I'm terrified. I fear losing everything that is terribly important to me. Now, the spouse, the distancing spouse, responds often by raising the eyebrows and really doesn't know what to say. The pattern is broken. The world is a little bit larger for them. Or, for example, the pursuing spouse could identify the channel of his or her personal need system that feels the fear and desperation and identify it and stare at his or her needs with compassion and take care of that neediness so it lessens its power and its grip on her or him. So once the pursuing spouse begins to address his or her own need system, what happens? Here's what happens usually. The distancing spouse begins to worry because the pursuing spouse is no longer playing the unspoken game that maintains the emotional distance. Get that? Result, their world is a little bit larger. Or the pursuing spouse, the one who says, I love you and I need you so much, the pursuing spouse says, all right, you have a problem and it's difficult for me to watch you throw your life into the gutter. Now, at an obvious or a more hidden level, this rattles often the distancing spouse. The pursuing spouse confronts with reality rather than patronizes. Again, the world and that marriage becomes a little bit larger. Or the pursuing spouse, the one who has a need to love, could say, I want resolution. I would like to get at the elephant in the room and move on, with or without you. The sooner, the better. Now, typically the distancing spouse ponders, uh-oh, what does this mean? Where does that leave me? Questions emerge, and the world expands. The pursuing spouse makes a shift and says, okay, I want to be married to an adult where there is mutual respect and understanding. And the distancing spouse now knows that the lines are drawn and the old games won't be played anymore. Again, a larger world view. Now realize I could list 100 different ways the pursuing spouse could craft sentences, shift the focal point, alter the tonal level of the voice, shift the perception of self, shift perception of the distancing spouse, and could make various comments about the process of interaction. There is no limit to how you can respond or what you can say. There is no limit. In your pain and narrow world, you just don't grasp that reality that there is no limit. And so you are limited. You suffer the same suffering every morning, afternoon, and evening. Your narrow world of pain, desperation, and worn-out perceptions of self, your spouse, and your lack of information about intimate relationships suffocate, drains life, hope, and passion. Now, you see, we all experience this to a degree. You're not alone by any stretch of the imagination. A marital crisis takes you back to old ways of thinking and feeling that are negative, constrictive, and fail to serve you well. It's like the proverbial horse who runs back to the stall even though it's on fire because the horse is afraid and wants the familiar. Okay, here's another difficulty, another strike against you, and that is that you are not taught adequately about the dynamics of marriage and relationships of emotional investment. You know more about how your cell phone operates than you do how your marriage operates. You travel through the education process learning how things work, the underlying reasons and dynamics, and how to fix. However, you receive very little similar information when it comes to marriage. As well, counseling or therapy is viewed as treatment, quote, but not a place for you to widen your perceptual world about marriage. A marriage crisis is letting you know that you want to embrace a larger world. You are weary and broken because you keep recycling that which doesn't work. You keep recycling your marital garbage. The marriage crisis is telling you you want more. You want to break out of your pain, isolation, and distortions. You want to remove your relational and personal binders. You want to feel more. You want to see more. You want to know more. You want more of a deep, emotionally connected, and mutually respectful marriage or relationship. The joy and value in my life is to walk with those I coach and reaching out toward that joyful realization. To learn more and receive your free copy of 5 Tips for Ending Your Marital Crisis and Pain Once and Forever, go to www.saveamarriageforever.com. Again, that's www.saveamarriageforever.com.